Chapter 4. Freakers.
Facility 0, 180 days online. Federation year 2424. Sam wakes up earlier than usual, the short conversation with the professor the previous night still spinning around in his head. Laughing to himself again, he gets out of bed. First things first, he needed a workout before breakfast. It's how he thought well. Asking for a route to the gym, the corridor opens before him, and Sam heads out of his room. Within a few minutes, he finds himself walking into a reasonably fitted-out workout area. It's pretty impressive, with a nice rack of running machines, rowers, brace benches, free weights, and an info terminal, very handy. To his surprise, the new girl from the other day is on one of the running machines, and she seems to be running well. Taking advantage of the situation, Sam heads over to a vacant running machine next to her.
Morning,
Sam says as he programs a 5-mile flat circuit and starts his run. The woman next to him says nothing and continues running hard. Sam starts his own run and picks up speed. Whoa, she is fast. Glancing over at her readout, Sam is impressed to see that she's on target for a 28-minute 10K. A few minutes later, without showing signs of fatigue, the mystery woman slows and then stops as the machine beeps and shows her final time, a very respectable 28 minutes and 31 seconds. Sam tries again.
Good morning. I'm Sam, the latest security officer of Facility 0.
Only glancing at him for a second, the silent mystery woman gets down from the running machine and then stops as she turns and regards him fully.
The Sam McCall?
She replies, with a sound of slight disbelief in her voice.
The one and only.
Sam replies with a smile, noticing a slight shimmering in her right eye. Usually that would mean it's not a real eye but some kind of implant. But Sam felt happier that the silence now seemed to have been broken, and he was intrigued that she recognized him from somewhere.
The same Sam McCall that's broken 27 laws in multiple sectors of space, convicted of crimes against the Federation in 10 different courts, and broken out of the Federation's best detention centers, all across Federation space?
She asks in an incredulous tone.
Yep, that's me.
Sam replies, his smile becoming wider.
And you've been made a security officer of this dreadful place.
Yes, that's right.
Rolling her eyes in disbelief but resigned to the fact that she knows it's the truth, she replies one last time.
Thank you for confirming that this place is being run by idiots, so please don't talk to me ever again. In fact, do me one better. Just stay away from me.
Her shimmering right eye stops as it returns to normal, and she turns and heads out of the room without saying anything else or looking back. Sam stands there, stunned. What the hell was that all about? Then, moments after the woman leaves, the room opens up again, and Frank walks in with a towel over his shoulders.
Hey, Sammy boy, how's things?
He stops and looks at Sam.
Whew, you look like you've just been slapped in the face.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it. I was just talking to that new girl.
Sam says, still feeling a bit bewildered. Frank laughs.
Oh, you must mean Jessica. Yeah, she's a tightly sprung girl, that one.
He says, laughing again, and then stops and gazes about the room as the lights start to buzz and flicker.
Ooh, crap. Here we go again.
Frank mumbles.
What's going on?
I'm not entirely sure why, but every now and again, the whole place goes nuts, and the routing system gets all messed up. We should wait here, and it should resolve itself. You're just lucky you're not en route somewhere.
En route somewhere? What do you mean?
Sam questions as he steps off the running machine and heads over to the terminal.
I mean, my story the other night wasn't just a story. Sure, I embellished it a little, but mainly when the lights flicker and buzz, you stay put.
Frank explains. Sam reaches the terminal, and the terminal comes to life and shows the usual "Welcome to Facility 0" on the screen. Sam taps the terminal as before, and it displays the message, "Please speak your request."
List my commands and show accessible locations.
He asks, and the following appears on the screen. Sam McCall's room, dining hall, information room, workout gym, main security, lost and found, Medical, dismantling bay, levels 1 through 20. Your current level is 2. Current prisoner population, 1790. Warning, power fluctuation detected. Current community level 3 is reaching maximum capacity. New level 4 activating. Time to completion, 3 hours. Backup power generators are now online. Terminal locked out until further notice,
Well, that sounds delightful.
Sam says. Turning to Frank and motioning to the lights, Sam asks,
So we have 3 hours of this?
Yep, that's about right. Although I've never seen that information about levels before. But then again, I never experienced one of these with someone with security access before.
Frank smiles and then continues.
Anyone with security access is usually nowhere to be seen.
Interesting, Sam thinks, but of no use at this time. Just then, a corridor opens up along the side of the room away from them, and Jessica leaps through. This time, she has built up a sweat. The open corridor lighting begins to cast odd and distorted shadows upon the room floor, as someone or something scrapes and claws their way closer to the room, and the laughter and cooing noises become louder.
What the hell is going on?
Jessica says aloud while looking back down the way she had come. Jessica, already backing away, murmurs,
What the fuck?
Cancel route! Cancel route! Cancel route!
Frank shouts as Jessica stops backing up. Her facial expression changes once more, this time to one of determination as her hands form fists. Then a bloody hand holding a crudely made blade comes into view from Sam's angle of the corridor. His only thought at that moment mirrors Jessica's moments before. What the fuck? Then, without warning, the system voice, also slightly distorted in tone, says,
Command accepted.
The corridor entranceway vanishes silently, slicing off the hand of the unknown figure, causing the hand and the blade to thud and clang down upon the floor as blackish blood oozes out from the severed extremity.
Friggin' freakers! Friggin' freakers! Friggin' freakers!
Is all Frank begins to repeat over and over. Sam stares at the severed hand as several of its fingers continue to twitch. Jessica calmly walks over to the hand and steps on it. And then, grabbing the blade with a torn-off piece of cloth, she steps away, and with quick reactions, she stabs the still twitching hand.
Calm down, Frank. It's dead.
Sam walks over to stand next to Jessica as she steps on the hand once more to pull her blade free. As she bends, he notices the blood and a nasty wound on her right shoulder. The deep slash, angry-looking, at least 8 inches from shoulder to upper arm.
Oh, shit. Let me take a look at that.
But as he starts to reach out, her reaction is to pull away.
It's okay. It's not serious.
It's not serious? Don't be silly. You have an 8 to 9 inch long gash here. If we don't stop the bleeding, you're...
Sam begins to say.
Look, I said it's not serious.
Jessica snaps, interrupting him and again pulling away.
You are one stubborn. Just let me take a look.
Sam insists. He steps in and takes hold of her arm. But as he takes a closer look, he feels her body tense, and he gets the sense that he is about to regret trying to help. Moments later, though, she sighs and relaxes, allowing him to continue to help.
I'm going to need to borrow your blade and make some bandages from your sleeve, if I may. I have to try and stop this bleeding.
It really isn't that bad. But I appreciate your concern. Just give it a moment.
Give it a moment for what? For the wound to bleed more?
He counters back. And then something deep within her arm, a metallic mesh, glints from the light. As he takes a closer look, the mesh vanishes from sight as the flesh around it starts to knit itself back together. The wound then stops bleeding, and in a matter of seconds, the cut itself closes, leaving just a jagged line of blood where the injury was moments before.
As I was trying to say, it wasn't that bad. It just looked bad.
She says, giving Sam a half smile. She walks over to Frank, who now seems to have stopped repeating himself but still looks terrified. Now, it's Sam's turn to be stunned. Whatever is under this woman's skin is not something you can just buy over the counter. That's more likely to be some kind of high-grade military dermal mesh, but very effective. Like wearing a super lightweight suit of chainmail under your skin, along with some kind of repair nanites, slow to activate but effective. Then, remembering the shimmer in her right eye, Sam wonders what other surprises she has and how she's been allowed to keep her military implants. Putting that last thought to one side, he decides to head over and join the others.
So, what's the plan?
Sam asks, as Frank seems to have calmed enough to look up, then regards Sam as he ponders the question.
Not much we can do but wait it out. Normally we are asleep when this happens, and that way it's much safer. But from time to time it happens during the day, which means the freakers can find us more easily. Also, moving around tends to draw their attention.
Sounds sensible then, if we just stay here and, as Frank says, wait it out.
Sam suggests. But then the corridor that Jessica had run out of earlier reopens, and on the opposite side of the room, another corridor opens up, followed by the sound of laughter and sinister cheering. From the first corridor, the cheering changes to a disturbing chant.
We only want to have some fun. We just want to eat your thumbs, fingers and the knuckles too. An elbow or an arm will do. We just want something of yours to chew.
This is followed by an outburst of laughter as something is thrown into the room. It lands with a thud and rolls along the floor, turning and spinning as it slows down and comes to rest. The Good Time Boys' former leader stares up at them with dead eyes, his broken nose now missing, just leaving a few ribbons of flesh.
Come be our friend. No need to offend. Otherwise, you might end up like your friend.
Frickin' freakers! Frickin' freakers! Frickin' freakers!
The freakers, upon hearing Frank, begin to cackle with laughter, and Frank screams a terrified scream and bolts for the opposite corridor, away from the laughter and the decapitated head.
Frank, no!
Jessica, caught off guard and distracted by the thrown head, darts off after Frank, but is too slow. The corridor closes as he passes through. The sound from the opposite side stops, but the corridor remains open, leaving just the flickering lights from within. Jessica stares across to the other corridor for a moment, and then motions for Sam to join her as she walks into the center of the room.
I don't think the walls are the safest place to stand right now,
she says as she grips the crudely fashioned blade in her right hand. Joining her, Sam notices that the corridor is empty. They stand there just staring down the open corridor for what feels like an hour but is, in reality, maybe 10 minutes. Then they hear sounds in the distance. Unrecognizable shouting can be heard, and then a voice from far off.
No! Keep back!
A scream of pain reaches Sam and Jessica, followed by laughter.
Sod this. You can wait here if you want, but I'm not going to die here on their terms.
And she runs into the open corridor. Oh, crap, Sam thinks, and he heads off after her, knowing that he's much safer with her than on his own. But leaving this room was not on his to-do list. Running at a brisk pace, they make their way through the maze-like corridor, turning left and then right, then straight on at a crossroads. The passages have never had this configuration when going from cell to the dining hall or anywhere. It has always been a single path. Sure, it might turn, but it never gives you a choice of directions to take. By the time Jessica raises her hand to motion for him to stop, Sam is sure they've gone around in circles, but her manner seems to say she knows what she's doing. So he keeps quiet. Up ahead, the corridor turns right once more, but from around that corner comes a chuckle of amusement. They stop for a moment, and then Jessica starts to creep down the corridor, motioning Sam to follow slowly. Suddenly, she stops as they both hear movement from ahead of them. The chuckle stops, and from around the corner steps a horrifying visage. A man with scars all over his head, not a single hair upon his scalp, his face slick with fresh blood. He stands about 6 feet, his body emaciated-looking and wearing no clothes. His ribs pressed tightly under skin that seems far too small, stretched over his entire body, which appears far too big. His stomach is sucked in, giving the impression that his ribs stick out even more. However, what makes the sight before Sam and Jessica genuinely terrifying is that his right hand is not his own. It is much larger than his left, and the area just past his wrist where he had attached it to his stump is much thinner than this new hand. He has stitched the two ends together using electrical wire. the wire zigzagging back and forth and making the skin overlap in places. Somehow, defying logic, the hand works, and he stands there flexing it with signs of remarkable strength. The terrifying man or creature looks up at them as he grins wickedly and takes a step forward, pointing to Jessica's blade and then toward himself.
You want your knife back? I'm more than happy to return it to you.
Somehow, Jessica looks pretty menacing as she brings the crude weapon up, stepping toward him. As the gap narrows, other freakers seem to materialize from behind what Sam now assumes might be their leader. First one, then another, and then a third. But as they appear, Sam realizes that they are not just appearing as such, but coming through the walls. Jessica stops as the leader, now jeering at her, does the same. Sam notices that the newcomers are wearing the tattered remains of prison outfits, all in varying conditions, as they all start to chuckle and shout, mocking and occasionally mumbling.
We only want to have some fun. We just want to eat your thumbs.
Just when he starts to think that things can't get any worse, Sam hears more sounds of running footsteps from behind him, echoing from down the corridor. Oddly, this sound causes the freakers to stop their jeering song and start to crane their necks to see who's coming. Unfortunately, Sam and Jessica don't have to wait long before the rest of the Good Time Boys, armed with similar crude blades, charge around the corner. And then within only a few paces, the group comes to a sudden halt as they see the man and woman standing there with the freakers halfway along the corridor. Testing the wall to the right with his foot, Sam confirms what he thinks must have happened. Not only is the system not functioning correctly here, but the artificially generated voids that make the walls solid are also down. The sides of the corridors are just shadows. The Good Time Boys start their own jeering and threatening shouts as both groups begin to charge at each other, not caring who's standing in their way. Sam notices more freakers joining at the back of the group. He takes hold of Jessica's arm as she prepares to defend them.
Trust me,
he says as the groups converge, and leaving it to the last second, he dives through the wall to his right, pulling Jessica with him and hoping that he's not killed them both. She almost pulls Sam back at first, but then relents and follows him through. Sam is relieved to find that they're in a near-empty storeroom. It's immediately apparent that the walls are down, but the sound suppressors are working fully, and the noise from the corridor and the impending clash stops. Luckily, the main storage container is on the other side of the room, but moments later they are joined by one of the other freakers. The freaker is holding a nasty-looking weapon with one end flared open and bent back upon itself, forming a crude mace of sharpened metal. With a devilish grin on his face, he swings the crude mace back and forth. Sam starts to step forward to meet him, but Jessica pushes past him.
Unless you're hiding skills I'm not aware of, I'll handle this,
she says. Lunging forward, the freaker suddenly swings the mace toward both of them. Sam's reaction is to scramble away from danger, but Jessica calmly dives forward and under the swing, coming up in one smooth motion, and with her blade held firmly, she thrusts upward in a single action. The blade enters the freaker firmly under the chin and pierces the roof of his mouth, sending him into spasms. Jessica then twists and pulls down hard on the blade, resulting in the sound of grinding and shattering bone as the blade is freed and the freaker falls to the floor. Sam stands there shocked and stunned, thinking, "Who the hell is this woman?"
So what's next, Sam? Wait here or head somewhere else?
Jessica says, snapping him out of his thoughts.
I'm not sure, but the dining hall is the safest place to be, I think. Frank said that if you stay off the grid too long, the computer drops you off of the database, but if you're lucky, if you ask enough, the system might open up a path.
Remembering what Frank had told him.
Okay then, let's give it a try.
Jessica replies.
Take me to the dining hall.
She asks, but nothing happens.
Take me to the dining hall.
She repeats. Still nothing happens.
Take me to the dining hall.
She repeats again, this time emphasizing her words. The room lights blink and buzz. Sam had almost forgotten they had stopped, and then a doorway opens up, leading away from the room, the lights in the corridor on and stable.
Well, I guess this looks promising. Let's get out of here before the freakers work out where we went, and you have to defend yourself again by embarrassing a few more of those freakers.
Sam says as he heads for the doorway. Jessica gives him a grin as she cleans the blood from her blade, and then she leans down, picks up the crude mace and hands it to him.
You might need this just in case I'm not around to protect your ass,
She says, slipping past him and heading down the corridor at a slow jog. That renders Sam speechless for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
He says in a slightly sarcastic tone and follows after her. Jessica leads on, following the corridor to the right and then left. As they take the last corner, a doorway opens up at its end, showing a large room beyond. Two people peer out of the door, and upon seeing them, start to shout,
Run! Quickly now. It's about to happen again. Move it.
Without another prompt from the guys ahead, both Jessica and Sam start to run. But before they even make it halfway, the lights begin to flicker and buzz again. And almost on cue, the sound of freakers starts to echo down the corridor. Looking behind, Sam sees at least 4 freakers turn the corner he and Jessica had passed a few moments before, and then ahead of them, another freaker appears 20 feet in front of Jessica. She slows and starts to prepare for a fight as a hand reaches out from the wall and grabs hold of her shoulder, pulling her back with surprising strength. Her assailant's face appears as his other hand tries to grab for her. The first freaker ahead of us lifts up a makeshift spear made from aluminium tubing with a jagged, pointed shard of metal attached and hurls it toward her. The second man manages to get a better grip and slows her enough to give her some concerns, but she's able to twist her body sideways. This leaves her back totally exposed to her second assailant, but she shouts out a warning to Sam. Lifting up his own weapon, he swings at the second assailant. The dangerous end crushes and slices the side of the man's head, but only as a glancing blow down the side of his face. It does remove most of his ear, though, and it impacts his shoulder with a sickening thud. The freaker screams out in pain, releasing Jessica and falls back through the wall, vanishing from sight. Then the first assailant's thrown spear hits her upper arm, the jagged point going all the way through. Wincing and in obvious pain, Jessica reaches with her left hand and pulls the spear out with considerable strength, making the hole bigger as a gush of blood pours from the open wound. She hurls the spear back down the corridor. The action would have been impressive, but the spear misses by a whisker and disappears into the darkness. The first assailant jeers and makes a rude gesture before diving back through the wall. Jessica staggers as her arm continues to pour with blood, her left hand attempting to cover up the holes but failing to stop the flow. Sam catches hold of her as he reaches her, noticing that the doorway at the end of the corridor is still open.
Keep moving!
The same man that Sam now recognizes as the foreman of the laundry that had called out before urges them on, and they both stumble onward at a slower pace. 20 feet from the doorway, the foreman, shouting for them to hurry, runs out and helps them the rest of the way. Moments later, they pass through, and the doorway closes behind them. Although it's a large room, this is not the dining hall. Transport boxes of all shapes and sizes are lined up along the walls. The foreman and another unknown man help by making a makeshift bed, and as Jessica is set down upon it, Sam thanks them. He cuts and tears the sleeve from Jessica's arm with her blade. Jessica herself is now looking pale.
I'm sure it's not too bad, Jessica. I think it missed the bone.
Sam says, not sounding that convincing as he rips her sleeve into further strips. Then he ties one piece tightly above her wound. When he lifts the arm, he spots another nasty-looking puncture wound halfway down her ribs, her blood turning her prison jumpsuit red. Cussing under his breath, Sam starts to tear away the fabric around the entry wound, seeing something just under her flesh glint in the light.
Abby. My friends call me Abby or Abs, but that's a long story. But you can call me Abby or Jess,
She says, grinning weakly.
It's nice to meet you, Jess. Let's get this bleeding stopped so we can discuss more on how to survive all this.
Just stop the bleeding and my body will do the rest.
Her eyes close, and she slips into unconsciousness. Sam tends her wounds as best he can. He's heard so many stories of infected wounds, what to do, what not to do, but he's no medic, so he does what he can. He manages to keep her body elevated and make a tourniquet out of the remaining strips of cloth. Then, knowing he's done all he can, he goes and joins the others. The foreman, whom Sam had found out earlier, is called Jake, nods as he arrives, and the two continue their talk with a third man he hadn't noticed when they arrived earlier. Looking down, Sam is shocked to see Frank lying there. His face has been torn in places, with nasty lacerations down one side. As Sam stares down, he realizes his right hand is missing from the wrist down. The stump is wrapped up with jumpsuit pieces now stained red with his own blood.
Hi, Frank. I'm glad to see you made it here. Not that I have much of an idea where here is.
Here? Well, here is a little complex, but if I'm right and the rumors are true, this place is called the Lost and Found.
Frank says, and he starts to cough as a sudden bout of pain hits him.
This is the place where the system roots all those that are removed from the active system.
What does that mean?
It means that the system will no longer recognize any of us, and sooner or later, the freakers will come and finish the job.
Frank says, and with another series of coughs, Frank winces in pain and slowly falls silent and passes out, leaving Sam staring at the room and then at the others, unsure what to do next.
End of chapter 4.